Trump has been getting hit pretty hard lately. He's got about, what, 4 or 5 days before New York City District Attorney Letitia James and Judge Arthur Engoron are set to essentially seize Donald Trump's properties as a result of the $450 million case, these, victimless case that is, literally still unfolding as we speak here. Unless something changes drastically in the next 4 to 5 days, it looks like Letitia James may actually have the power to move forward with that. But I actually have some very good news that I want to share with you guys on one of Trump's cases. Are you guys able to see and hear me okay in the live here? We got Catalia in the house. What's going on? We got Bob. Good evening. Barbara, Luke. All right, cool. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you guys were on my live earlier this morning, you guys probably already heard the big news, the big update that I shared with you regarding Ashley Merchant. She had some very good news, and we went into the details on that. I also went in on a comment that was a little bit uncalled for. If you guys want to see what that was about, if you guys want to actually see the comment yourself, you can definitely check out my previous live. But what I want to talk to you guys about today is actually breaking news. So the judge for Trump's got so many cases out here right now. So Judge Scott McAfee for the Georgia elections interference case has actually come out and said that basically he will allow Trump and the co-defendants to appeal the Fani Willis disqualification decision. Now, guys, this is literally huge. Now, we're going to dissect this quite a bit on this video here today, but I want to share this clip with you. So please take a listen to what the former assistant district attorney in Atlanta by the name of Phil Holloway had to say about this particular decision. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with the New York case, and then he's going to jump into the Georgia election case. So just have a listen here. We're going to dissect this.
That right. So this is preventing him from his appeal that he has as a matter of right. This is the kind of thing that happens when you see prosecutors weaponizing the justice system. This is not unlike what's happening in Atlanta, where you've got prosecutors essentially campaigning on the platform that they're going to go after and get a specific citizen. So regardless of how you feel about Trump, you've got to recognize that this is wrong. This is akin to telling a condemned prisoner, yes, you can have your appeal, but only after we carry out the execution, of course, and then it's too late. But that's what's going on in New York.
I mean, in the next 5 days, James could start seizing these Trump assets, as we mentioned, beyond New York. What would that eventually look like if she moves in that direction? As all indications say that she just may.
Yeah, what will happen is if she liquidates everything, that's carrying out the death penalty, if you will, in terms of his business without him having the right to appeal. It's wrong. It's not how the system is supposed to work. And it's a perfect example of the weaponization, the wrongful weaponization of the justice system designed to go after one specific individual.
Completely unfair, guys. Just completely unfair. But
more on the justice system. We've got an update now, Phil, from the judge, this just in, overseeing efforts to disqualify Fani Willis from the Georgia election interference case. That judge, we have just learned, has issued an order, Phil, allowing Trump and 8 co-defendants to seek appeal of the order denying disqualification of Willis. The Georgia Court of Appeals has 45 days to decide whether they will hear the case. That's obviously big news, Phil. Your reaction?
So obviously this is big news. Now, we've heard the phrase odor of mendacity, right? So this is the phrase that Judge Scott McAfee, created or came up with weeks ago. This is a very vivid, somewhat poetic way to describe the atmosphere of mistrust and the deception surrounding this case. And it's not a common legal term, which kind of makes it which really makes its use here both notable and likely to kind of intrigue the audience, right? And it also suggests a little bit of drama and a little bit of intensity. And a lot of people are looking at the fact that Judge Scott McAfee allowed one of the prosecutors to remain on the case. Now, obviously, Fani Willis was not going to drop off the case. But we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. But there is something that is new to me. I'm not an attorney, never, played one on TV or even or pretended to be one on YouTube or anything like that. But so there's a lot of new vocabulary for me, and maybe some new vocabulary for you guys as well. But there's this concept of a certificate of review. And so essentially the legal maneuvering involved in appealing for a higher court's review before the trial has officially started. It's basically a complex aspect of the justice system that might not be very well understood. It definitely wasn't very well understood by me. And I'm still trying to understand it myself. But basically, explaining the process, especially in a high-profile case, it definitely sheds a lot of light on the strategic battles that are underway right now. But Judge Scott McAfee's decision to grant the certificate of immediate review is a pivotal moment in this case, and it really highlights Judge Scott McAfee's acknowledgement of the case's significance, and of course the need for very careful scrutiny, and it definitely underscores the seriousness and the complexity of this case. But one thing that I think personally, and this has a lot to do with Scott McAfee and Fani Willis's history. Do you guys know Scott McAfee and Fani Willis's history? Because they got history, and I think that this had definitely played some degree of a role in his decision over the last couple of days here. So basically, let me give you a little bit of insight. Their history goes back several years, as a matter of fact. Now, when we look at Scott McAfee, okay, Scott McAfee, he's a fairly young guy. In fact, I think he's one of the youngest judges in Georgia. He's like 34 years old. Basically, he found himself presiding over this Georgia trial of a former U.S. President, Donald Trump, and ultimately having to rule on whether the case prosecutor, his former boss, I don't know if you guys knew that, but basically Fani Willis used to be the boss of Judge Scott McAfee. And basically he has found himself in this position to determine whether or not she should be disqualified. Now, we've seen a lot of testimony, and based on the testimony that we've seen, I know a lot of people are like, okay, well, where's Hunter Biden? Why isn't this guy getting charged? Why isn't he on the stand? I know, I'm reading your comments. Sorry, I don't want to get sidetracked. Based on the testimony that we've seen, there has been a lot of lies spewed left and right, from the prosecuting side. And a lot of people are asking, including myself, why hasn't Fani Willis and Nathan Wade been disqualified from the case? Well, there are political reasons I think that played a role, because if you look at Scott McAfee's response, his written response, he has already admitted that there's this this odor of mendacity, as he mentioned. He has already indicated that lies have already been identified and called out in court. And I'm paraphrasing, but this is what he has said. So he already knows that basically perjury has taken place. But then we wonder, well, why is Fani Willis still in this case? I think it has a lot to do with the fact that there was a previous relationship between all three of them. Fani Willis and Nathan Wade had a romantic relationship that started way earlier than what they said under oath. And Fani Willis and Judge Scott McAfee had a previous working relationship, which I'll get into later in this video. But I want you to have a listen to this former Attorney General's response to this approval here.
Yeah, it is big, and it's something that we've been following, of course, very closely here in the Atlanta area. The judge's order that's being appealed, in my opinion, is wrong. I think that he found, for example, that Willis wrongfully engaged in communications outside the courtroom. Basically, she went into the well of a church on Sunday, and she essentially called some of the defendants and their counsels racist, right? And so she is making public statements outside of the courtroom that are designed to impact the ability of these defendants to get a fair trial. So what's happened, the parties have appealed, and they have to do it. It's a two-step thing. They've got to get the judge who issued the order to agree to it. And as you mentioned, the Court of Appeals also has to agree to hear it. This is what we call an interlocutory appeal, a pre-trial appeal. Normally, you have to wait until after there's a conviction and then take every issue up that you think is an error, take it all up on appeal at the same time. But this issue is so important that you don't want to risk having a trial or multiple trials against all these defendants, potentially having convictions, and then have the Court of Appeals, after all is said and done, have them then say, you got it wrong. We're going to send it back for you to start over all again, and this time with a brand new prosecutor. So this procedure will prevent that type of situation from occurring.
Really interesting. That just in. Phil, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, so this is big news, guys. Really, really big news. So basically, and actually, I want to get to what Steve Sadow had actually indicated, because Steve Sadow was actually the attorney who actually filed for this appeal. Let me see if I can find this for you guys really quickly here. So here it is. So Steve Sadow, lead counsel for the former president, said in a statement yesterday that the judge's decision is, and he says, highly significant. He goes on to say that the defense is optimistic that the appellate review will lead to the case being dismissed and the DA being disqualified. Now, these statements came from Donald Trump's lead attorney, Steve Sadow. Judge Scott McAfee also said that while the defense pushes to have Willis disqualified, so this Real Housewives of Atlanta is far from over, or I should say, real prosecuting attorneys of Atlanta is far from over. Anyway, so Judge Scott McAfee also said that while the defense pushes to have Willis disqualified, he will continue to address the pretrial motions in this case. Willis was accused of having an improper affair with Nathan Wade, which is nothing new now. I mean, it was a shocker weeks ago, but it's nothing new now. We all know that. So Willis was accused of having an improper affair with Nathan Wade, a special counsel who she hired to help prosecute the case. Donald Trump and several other co-defendants said Willis was romantically linked with Wade way before his hiring, and alleged that she was financially benefiting from the position he held in her office. Now, we've already covered over $650,000 worth of taxpayer money was funneled into Fani Willis's office and through Fani Willis's office into the pockets and bank accounts of her boyfriend, Nathan Wade here. After hearing all the evidence presented in the court, McAfee on Friday ultimately gave Fani Willis an ultimatum: either remove yourself from the case or you got to fire Wade. You got one of the two here, right? So hours after the judge's order, I think it was very clear. Wade was like, I'm out, deuces, and he resigned from the case. I think he probably wanted to get out anyway, personally, because of all of the pressure that he was under for weeks and weeks on end, and all of his personal relationship business all out in the open. I'm pretty sure he was looking forward to having that come to an end. Really quick, just wanted to give a big, huge shout out to Juan Hernandez for the huge $50 super chat. My man, thank you so much for the support. And by the way, if you guys haven't already, I don't even know how many people we have in the live here, but if you haven't already, definitely hit the like button, show your support. Let's get this message out here. Share this video. Do your boy a favor, share this video, throw it up on Twitter and Facebook. Let's get the word out on what's really going on. So, but yeah, so I just want to talk a little bit more about this history between, basically Judge Scott McAfee and Fani Willis, because I definitely feel like this plays at least a minority role in the decisions that he makes. Imagine this. You work for someone for a number of years, you're working under someone, right? And then all of a sudden, through, you work hard, you climb the corporate ladder or whatnot, and all of a sudden you're now in a position where your decisions will dictate the future of the person you used to work for. You can't ignore the human element here. I mean, Judge Scott McAfee used to work for Fani Willis, and now his decision has a huge bearing over the future of her career. And of course, the future of Donald Trump, 18 other co-defendants, the future of America, whether or not a former president were to be charged with election interference. This case is not this is not an easy case for a 34-year-old judge, and probably one of the biggest cases that he's had to preside over. All right. So yeah. So anyway, the proceedings in Fulton County, in which President Trump is accused of conspiring to interfere in this 2020 election, they're the most legally and logistically complex of all four of his criminal cases right now. And, his cases span from Florida all the way through Georgia, Washington, D.C., up to New York. I hope I'm not forgetting any locations. Yeah, I think that's all four. Anyway, but, even before it was scheduled, the Superior Court Judge, Scott McAfee, he having recently marked his first year on the bench. I mean, he's barely got a year of being a judge under his belt. He had to contend with whether the district attorney, his previous boss, Fani Willis, should be thrown off the case. I mean, I'm thinking about this here. I mean, when you're a judge, you have to make a call. And what I'm seeing here in the legal system, and again, disclaimer here, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer, like they say on TMZ. I'm a lawyer. Anyway, so I'm looking at it from the perspective of, what if I were Judge Scott McAfee? And man, this is my old boss. I worked with her for however many years. We've built a relationship. I'm pretty sure it was just a business relationship. And at the same time, he's thinking about how she was likely the person who helped him get his start. She was the person who helped him to get into the position where he's at right now. I don't know Scott McAfee. I don't know Fani Willis, but I'm just looking at the circumstance and I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I were him, he's got to feel some degree of guilt. Like, man, I gotta bring the hammer down on my old boss who got me my job, basically, right? And I don't know if she actually got him his job or whatever, but I'm just saying, if you previously worked for a boss and now you have to make a decision over whether or not she gets to basically keep her job, it's a legitimate question, right? And so I kind of feel like when he took all of this time off he took like a week and a half off or 2 weeks to make a decision. And a lot of people were saying, well, why does it take so long to make this? I think he was battling amongst himself. Obviously, he's looking over a lot of details, a lot of testimony, evidence, so that he had to make a decision that he could live with, that society could kind of live with. And it was also I think it was also a political decision as well. So I don't think it was at all just cut and dry. I don't think it was, because if it was based purely on the testimony, Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, they would have both been gone. They would have both been disqualified, and more than likely the Trump case for Georgia would have been just completely dismissed and thrown out. That didn't happen. What did happen is Judge Scott McAfee came back and said, hey, I'm going to give you guys an option. one of y'all got to go. So it's either Fani Willis or Nathan Wade. So obviously Nathan Wade, he bounced and he officially resigned. Then Fani Willis is left here. Now if you, and I don't have his exact I don't have Judge Scott McAfee's exact words up here right now, but basically, in a nutshell, he condemned Fani Willis's lack of professionalism, her gross misjudgment and decisions during the trial. I mean, he went on and on and on. The odor of mendacity that he happened to use. I mean, he respectfully, professionally went in, basically. But what he did was, with the wording that he put in with his decision, it opened the door for like an underhanded pitch to Steve Sadow, who is Donald Trump's lead attorney, lead counsel. And he saw that pitch coming a mile away, and he hit it out the park today. He basically said, he created a motion. He submitted a motion today, which ultimately was approved by Judge Scott McAfee, using Scott McAfee's words verbatim almost, and actually verbatim in many cases, which he almost couldn't deny. He would inevitably have been, Judge Scott McAfee would have inevitably been arguing with himself if he were to deny Steve Sadow's request for appeal, because Steve Sadow used Judge Scott McAfee's own words when writing it. So this was a big win for Team Donald Trump, or Donald Trump's, legal team. So that's that. And according to Steve Sadow, like I said earlier, the defense team is optimistic that the appellate review will lead to the case being dismissed and the DA being disqualified. So we definitely have a lot more updates to come before we get to that point. But yeah, so I don't know if you guys knew about the history between Judge Scott McAfee and Fani Willis. I mean, basically, he's built this career over a relatively brief period of time. I mean, obviously, it'd have to be pretty brief because he's only 34 years old. He worked for both Fani Willis, who happens to be clearly a Democrat, and the state's Republican governor, Brian Kemp. So he actually seems like he's pretty balanced. As a judge, right? He seems actually like he's pretty balanced. I definitely want to give him that. I think he's in a really tough position. He, I don't want to say he's almost like Fani Willis, where he has a personal motivation for a particular outcome for the case. So I won't say that. But the simple fact of the matter is that he does actually know Fani Willis. She used to be his boss, right? So there's that. But Fani Willis being a Democrat, he worked under her for a number of years. Brian Kemp, the current Georgia state governor, he's a Republican. So, he's kind of like, he reports to Brian Kemp. So between the Democratic political ideology of Fani Willis and the Republican ideology of Brian Kemp, I think he's kind of right in the middle on that one. But after Judge Scott McAfee graduated in like 2013, he served as both a local prosecutor in a private practice before eventually taking the job prosecuting homicides in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office in 2015. And there, at that point, was Miss Willis, or Fani Willis. She was his supervisor back in 2015. And in an interview with the Washington Post last year, Fani Willis described Scott McAfee as one of her baby attorneys, praising him as immensely talented. And so it's kind of like, I feel like there was this level of nurturing And when you have that, it's like, man, imagine like you're a judge and you're presiding over your mom's case and your mom's in the wrong. You're probably not going to give her the harshest sentence. And I think that's what he did today. But I think what he did in the way he worded it, where basically he had to have either Fani Willis or Nathan Wade leave, he worded it in such a way where he effectively underhanded pitched an easy, fastball to Steve Sadow, Trump's attorney, through which he identified it and said, "Hey, I'll take it from here. Let me go ahead and appeal." At that point, Judge Scott McAfee said, "All right, appeal approved. Go ahead and move forward." So I feel like it was kind of like it was a way of doing justice, so to speak, without him having to do all of the work himself. In other words, I think effectively the same outcome will come by Steve Sadow moving forward with this appeal. But instead of Scott McAfee having to do it himself, he didn't actually have to throw Fani Willis under the bus. That's my take on what's happened. But let me know what you guys think about that. I did my best to explain what I was thinking on that one. And I know there's a lot of names, a lot of stuff going on, but hopefully that made sense to you guys. But yeah, so this is a big, huge move and a big, huge win for the Trump team. Definitely wanted to share that with you guys. I hope you guys appreciated the update. I have a lot more that I'm going to be sharing with you guys tomorrow. But if you haven't already, definitely hit the like button. Definitely subscribe to the channel. Share this video. Let me jump in the comments real quick. I didn't even like go in the comments that much today. Let me just hit those up before I get out of here. All right. So who's in the building today? Just say hello in the comments. Gregory Leak, what's going on? Catalia, you are welcome. Maybe the judge got Fani before Wade. I guess it's possible, Gregory. Let's see. Look up, I'm a fool, do your dirty work. Describes McAfee perfectly, Don O says. Let's see. That's a good point. So Richard Shifka says, Ron, though, if the judge knew Fani before, shouldn't he have taken himself off the case before it started? This case is so messed up all around. But that's a very good point, and I totally overlooked that. That's right. Why, how that and we're talking about a conflict of interest here, and that was one of the arguments that Judge Scott McAfee said for why he didn't disqualify Fani Willis. He said there were I'm paraphrasing. He basically said that there were, there was the appearance of a conflict of interest, even though there really wasn't, right? So the question now is, is there a conflict of interest with the fact that Judge Scott McAfee used to work under Fani Willis back in the day? So very good point, Richard. Let's see. John Gardner says maybe McAfee figured that she was trying to use his friendship as a former employer to get her way, and just made the ruling to kind of get out from under it while setting up a disqualification on her. And that's what I'm thinking too, man. And let me know, did you guys know about Judge Scott McAfee and Fani Willis's history before this live? Just let me know in the comments. I'm just curious. I don't want to bore you guys with stuff you already know about. But then again, it's like we have so many new people coming to the channel and hanging out and subscribing and being a part of the community. And by the way, I just want to thank all the new members to the channel. Thank you so much for supporting. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all of your super chats. But there's so many new people that are coming to the channel. Not everybody's up to speed. So I almost feel slightly compelled to kind of give a little bit of backstory when I'm explaining things, because not everybody knows what's going on. And then, there's so many different Trump cases that are going on simultaneously that, unless you're watching closely, there's a lot of details that could be quite critical to your understanding that might need to kind of, be reiterated to get you up to speed. Let's see. Oh yeah, and I meant to ask because I always wonder this. How do you guys find my videos? Like, do you guys get like, are you just like searching something? Like, do you search like Ron Yates? Are you searching like Trump cases? Are you getting notifications? Like, does it show up in browse like on your homepage? Like, I'm just curious. Like, how do you guys even find my videos? I've always wondered that. Let's see. Lori June Stratton, hello Ron, a pleasure to see you. I love your segments. You good one. Thank you so much, Lori. I appreciate you. Let's see. Okay, so James R says YouTube randomly suggested it. Okay. Appreciate it, YouTube. Let's see. Stacy says YouTube suggested you. Don O, I get notified. Josephine Vu says notice. Okay. Okay, a lot of you guys are getting notifications. Lori says notifications. Arlene Herber showed up on the homepage. Wow. Todd J says, New World Power, the higher power, dream team working, growing, and building together. People power and the power of the people. We are all in this world family together. Yeah, we are. We absolutely are. Let's see. Okay. So, let's see. Okay. That was John Gardner. I covered you again. I covered you before. Okay. So Richard says, who knows, Ron, maybe Fani and the judge had a relationship long before the case. And maybe that's why the judge, doesn't have the balls to disqualify Fanny Pants. Fanny Pants. Well, they definitely at least had a business relationship. That much we know. So that's for sure. Catalia says Rudy Giuliani asked Judge Scott McAfee to grant them a certificate of immediate review. That was a great move. Yeah, that was a good move. That was a good move. Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to quickly jump in the comments and just say hello to you guys. Like I said, if you haven't already, definitely hit the like button for the video. Thank you so much for sharing these videos on Facebook and Twitter. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Y'all be safe.